What's going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer from blueandgold.com. With me, our beat writer at BGI, Tyler Horka. Tyler, we've done. I've seen. Seems like every day now I'm having you on a YouTube video to talk about some Notre Dame roster news. And the most recent news here is an addition from the transfer portal. And Notre Dame fans, make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe to our channel. If you haven't yet, go to blueandgold.com. $1 for 1 year premium access. All of the scoop on the Fighting Irish you can find there. Tyler, tell us about Blake Grupe, a transfer kicker from Arkansas State.
Yeah, obviously he's coming in to replace Jonathan Doerr, and Jonathan Doerr had a pretty good Notre Dame career this season. This past season started off really well for him, obviously kicking the game winner in overtime against Florida State, and then he kicks a game winner against Virginia Tech as well. He had some misses, but he had some really big makes in his career. So anytime you're trying to replace a guy who there was nobody taking his position from the Notre Dame roster this season. So that means when you're going into 2022, you're like looking at the roster saying, okay, what does Notre Dame have? Does it have a guy it can roll out against Ohio State on the road in that season opener who they're really confident in the kicking game? The answer was no. So Notre Dame goes and gets a guy from Arkansas State who leads that program all time in terms of points scored. He's made 162 of 168 extra point attempts. He's made 64 of 86 field goals. That's around 75%. So this is a guy who's kicked a long time. He's going to be a sixth-year guy. He started college football way back in 2017. So you're getting a veteran in the kicking game. You're getting a guy that you think can roll out there and say, hey, we need you to make a 42-yarder, go make this kick because it's a big one. And I think that's what they're getting in Grupe.
Tyler, you mentioned that 42 yards range from 40 to 49 yards, 17 of 28 for his career, 28 of 34 from 30 to 39 yards. So yeah, like you mentioned, 74% field goal kicker in his career. Yeah, that's not bad. Along of 50, he had a 50-yarder in 2021. He was 80%, 20 of 25 during this past season. So pretty well established guy. And yeah, Josh Bryan, you would assume, who Notre Dame flipped from Colorado in the 2021 class, would kind of be the next man up. But just like Ian Book, you had a bridge between Ian Book and the next guy with Jack Cohn, kind of the same scenario, just in a much less interesting scale because it's going from the quarterback position to kicker here. So yeah, you had Jonathan Doerr, longtime starter for Notre Dame, and now you have a bridge guy in Blake Grupe to whoever follows him. Plenty of roster moves to talk about with Notre Dame football. A couple of guys we're going to talk about in this video. We'll start with Joe Wilkins, receiver, someone who I've been very high on. When we did our top 25 most important players list for last season, I think I had Wilkins at like 13, and I don't think anyone else even had him in their top 25. I'm a big Joe Wilkins guy. Of course, he went down this past season with an injury that halted his season early. What was the impact of the news, in your opinion, Tyler, with Joe Wilkins coming back?
Well, first of all, it's huge just from a numbers standpoint. Notre Dame's a little thin at wide receiver, so Wilkins will be the seventh scholarship wide receiver that Notre Dame has in 2022, and it's still a little dicey even with those seven guys. So it's kind of we need everybody we can get, all hands on deck type situation because you look at the the senior receivers who are coming back, and Braden Lenzy, Avery Davis, and Joe Wilkins. Those are all guys who have had injuries in their career. I know Lenzy stayed healthy for the entirety of the 2021 season, which was huge, and he had his best year to date because of that. But it's a little sketchy if you have Davis coming off the ACL, Wilkins coming off the MCL. I expect Wilkins to be healthy, obviously, earlier than Davis, just because his injury came a whole month prior. It's an MCL rather than an ACL. But both are a little, something to worry about if you're Notre Dame for sure. So some of those younger guys in the wide receiver room, Lorenzo Styles, Deion Colsey, maybe even Jaden Thomas, you're going to be looking at those guys quite a bit. But Wilkins coming back, I think he's a better than 4 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown guy. You think he's better than that too? I've seen him in practices, and I'm like, this guy looks like a really good college wide receiver. He looks like a Power 5 guy that could start anywhere at the least play anywhere. So I think he contributes big for Notre Dame, especially in a thin wide receiver room.
It's such an interesting dynamic. You have all these like super, not maybe not experienced, but like older receivers in Wilkins, Davis, and Lindsey, guys have been around for a while, and then you have these really young guys and Colsey and Styles and Thomas. You have that gap where Notre Dame doesn't have any players from the 2020 or 2019 classes for, whether that be transfers out or moving positions. Pretty fascinating. And then Tobias Merriweather coming in this 2022 recruiting class. Unfortunately, he's not an early enrollee, but he will be there in the summer as someone I just saw last week. And I'll have a video compilation of his highlights at the All-American Bowl from San Antonio, Texas. He looked fantastic, so I think he's someone who can play an aid right away for Notre Dame. Deion Colsey wasn't an early enrollee, and we saw him play a good bit this past season. I think the same from Tobias Merriweather. And as we record this video, I will be pretty surprised if Notre Dame does not add another receiver, whether that be a transfer portal guy or a high school receiver. That's just kind of thing where things are trending. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being two more guys, so something to keep an eye on. Moving along, Tyler, Beau Bauer, linebacker, he is returning as well. Let's talk about him. But first, want to reiterate to you guys, dollar for 1 year premium access at blueandgold.com. Sign up before February 3rd. We'll also throw in a free Blue and Gold Founders Club hat. So again, $1 and a free hat. We're really throwing the kitchen sink at you guys to sign up, so go ahead and do that. Let us know if you do in the comments section of this video. Beau Bauer, he's returning as well. Impact there. What do you think we'll see from him this upcoming fall?
Oh, I think this is huge, and I feel like I've said it with a few other guys too. This is maybe as a big of a returning get that Notre Dame has gotten in the last 9-10 days it's been since the Fiesta Bowl. But this it really is with Drew White, who has started at that position in every game in 2021 except for the one that he wasn't healthy for. I think that was the Virginia game on the road. That's the one game that Beau Bauer started in, and if you remember, Beau Bauer played really well in that game. Beau Bauer played pretty well throughout the entire season as well. He was, came in on third downs mainly and was a really good cover guy. He had 5 passes defended. He has 6 in his career now. 5 of those came last year. So showed his athleticism on passing downs. Obviously, you're going to need him to turn into an every down middle linebacker type of guy. I think he can do that. He's athletic enough to stop the run, rush the passer, and then drop back in coverage as well. So I think he's a complete linebacker. Notre Dame is getting all of its starting linebackers back from last season now, which is huge. And obviously, Maris Leofau comes into the conversation at that position as well. So it's a pretty sneaky deep group, even with losing Drew White. But the thing is about the middle linebacker position, with White leaving, really, if Bauer didn't choose to come back, Notre Dame was pretty empty-handed there. Maybe you see Joshua Burnham come in and say, "I'm a freshman starter," which I don't know if Marcus Freeman wants to throw him into that kind of fire. So he can almost learn from Bauer now, kind of get groomed by Bauer, and Bauer can show him the ropes. And I think this just really stabilizes the middle of that Notre Dame defense going into 2022.
Yeah, good stuff. So transfer coming in, Blake Grupe from Arkansas State, and then Joe Wilkins and Beau Bauer returning to the team. It seems like in all these announcements, I mean, Notre Dame's, you would have liked to have Myron Tongavaloa Mosa back just because he's so darn good, but otherwise, Notre Dame's just like cruising with these. Kevin Austin going was the one that kind of stings, but otherwise, like Notre Dame doing really well, retaining coaches, retaining players, then adding Brandon Joseph, and now Blake Grupe. Been pretty good offseason so far.
Yeah, I don't want to be the guy that speculates, but you do wonder if Brian Kelly's still the head coach of this team, does he have as much of an impact in bringing all these guys back, or is this really a Marcus Freeman impact type of situation? Obviously, like I said, that's total speculation. You'll never know because the opposite reality will never be reality. This is reality. Marcus Freeman's the head coach of this team, and what's also reality is he's bringing a lot of these guys back, and Notre Dame is better for it.
Yeah, George Takis, another guy. I mean, it's just loaded list. Josh Lugg. I mean, we talked about all these guys in different YouTube videos, so make sure you check that out if you've missed anything. And of course, check out blueandgold.com, home of Notre Dame football recruiting, basketball coverage. find that all. Tyler does a really good job covering women's basketball. Patrick, men's basketball. Of course, both those guys are beat writer, cover football. I had a story up on Blake Grupe picking Notre Dame, and you can find that at blueandgold.com. And I'm sure by the time that we recorded this video to when this is published, there's been more news. So make sure you check everything out at blueandgold.com. Sign up for just $1 for your first year. Appreciate you guys watching, and we will catch you guys next time.